there's been a murder and the culprit is in your home. They're in your office. Heck, they might even be in your pocket. The criminal? Internet streaming. The victim? Basically the entire media industry. We're analyzing the crime scene. Up next on Fact Bites. But before we get into all the gory details, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and bell for notifications. Okay, so maybe murder is a bit overly dramatic. It's more like slowly draining the lifeblood out of the industry as we know it, like a vampire, like a media vampire. Or maybe a media cannibal if you're watching that blockbuster documentary that's currently on Netflix right now. Take TV, for example. We are definitely in the age of streaming television. I mean, gone are the days of scheduling your week around must-see programming. Gone are the days of physical media like discs or tapes. I mean, you guys remember VHS tapes? If you don't remember VHS tapes, do me a favor and keep that information to yourself. But now we watch when we want, where we want, on the phones that we carry around with us. But all that flexibility and access comes at the cost of an industry's way of life. So today, we're looking at 3 ways that internet streaming is killing traditional television. First up, let's talk business. In this golden age of television, it's sometimes easy to forget that TV isn't just an art form, it's a business. And how does traditional television make money? Advertising. If you were born after the year 2000 or just simply blocked out that part of your life, you may have forgotten how TV used to work. See, TV was, and technically still is, supported by advertising. Let's take a look at the life cycle of a television show. In simple terms, a show starts with a studio. In order to make that show, the studio needs money to pay for the writers and directors and line producers and production assistants and editors and special effects artists, you name it. So the studio will pitch the show to one or more TV networks. If a network likes the show, they'll give the studio money to make the show, or at least part of the show. The studio still has to pay some of the costs, but the network finances a part of the budget. Now, the network makes its money back when the show airs. This is because the network can sell airtime to advertisers to run commercials during their programming. The price of that airtime fluctuates based on how many viewers a program is likely to get during a specific day and time. For example, airtime on a Thursday night between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m., that's prime time, is going to cost advertisers more than airtime that's on a Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. That's because there's going to be more viewers watching in that primetime slot than on the weekends. Likewise, an ad that runs during the Super Bowl is going to cost more than an ad that runs, well, any other time. The Super Bowl is kind of a big deal with advertisers. To measure viewership, the TV networks traditionally used the Nielsen Media Research Company to gather ratings from a sample of households with television sets. You've probably heard of Nielsen ratings before, and you probably know that Nielsen ratings can make or break your favorite TV show. That's because the more viewers tune into your program, the more the networks can charge for advertising time. The more likely your show is going to stick around for the next season. Ideally, studios want the TV shows they produce to run for at least 5 seasons or 100 episodes, whichever comes first. That's when the studios make their money back through syndication or reruns. This is when secondary networks or local stations pay a licensing fee to air older episodes of a show so that they can sell ad time to make up their operating costs. So think about your most recent sick day where you were watching the CW Supernatural at 11 a.m. on TNT, or CBS's The Big Bang Theory on TBS. But everything changed when streaming entered the picture. Streaming networks don't need Nielsen ratings or advertisers. These companies are built on subscription fees, not a new concept since HBO has been doing that since 1972.
Though some of the streaming networks like Hulu and Peacock still include ads, many offer service tiers that allow you to opt out of commercial breaks if you're willing to pay a higher price. Companies like Prime, Netflix, and Disney Plus act as both the studio that makes the content and the network that distributes that content. Netflix specifically bases their business model on a one-time upfront fee that they pay to talent to produce a show, knowing that that content will live on their sites in perpetuity with no need for syndication or external licensing fees. And although viewership still determines which show is renewed for a second, third, fourth season, streaming companies are much better at calculating the number of viewers tuned in to a given program than Nielsen is. Nielsen can only track a percentage of households, but sites like Netflix can track viewers on an almost individual level.
And this change in financing had a direct impact on the next pillar of television, production scheduling. See, advertising revenues didn't just dictate what shows made it on the air each year, they also dictated the entire production schedule of a TV show. For decades, the production schedule of television was pretty much regimented.
First, there's pitch season, roughly June, July, where a writer or a studio will pitch a story idea to the networks to see what sticks. Scripts and rewrites will go back and forth until November, December, just in time to kick off pilot season in January. This is when the networks decide which shows they'll pay to produce a pilot or proof of concept episode. Why does this happen in January? Well, that's because these pilots need to go through a series of meetings and focus groups before the networks can decide which shows they'll debut during upfronts. Upfronts are basically big parties that the networks host for potential advertisers. These parties are intended to hype the new and returning shows for the fall season so that advertisers will pay top dollar to air their ads during that primetime programming. Once a show is officially given the green light during upfronts, the show-running team will put together a writing staff in June, begin filming in July, and start airing episodes in September, October.
So everything pivots around those upfront meetings and what advertisers respond to best.
Although both half-hour comedies and hour-long dramas typically receive a 22 to 24 episode season on both cable and broadcast television, many that are greenlit during the upfronts only receive an order for 13 episodes from the networks. This is called a front 13, back 9 deal, meaning that the network agrees to pick up the first 13 episodes with the option to drop the show after 13 if it isn't going well with the ratings.
But why do we have a 20-plus episode season in the first place? That's because Nielsen collects data 4 times a year during sweeps months. The networks need to ensure that they have something airing during each quarter. A 22 to 24 episode season will typically hit 3 out of 4 sweeps months, with the 4th one being in the summertime when ratings are usually low anyway. But nobody really cares because we're all on vacation. But streamers aren't beholden to this schedule. When most of them aren't relying on advertisers anyway, they can connect with talent and begin the production process at literally any time. This shortens the timeline between pitch and production, with almost no pilot season limbo for the writers and showrunners that helm new programs. And because streaming networks don't have to worry about Nielsen or sweeps, they don't have to wait for a specific time to start airing new episodes. They don't have to worry about episode count either. So the seasons of a show intended to stream online versus on air are significantly shorter than their broadcast brethren.
To be clear, the short seasons were a lesson from cable stations like AMC and HBO. By allowing for shorter seasons, the streaming networks can draw in bigger talent, typically from the world of film, because the big-name directors, actors, and writers know that it won't be as much of a commitment as a typical TV season would. With less episodes to pay for, the networks have the resources to greenlight more programming. And because they don't have to worry about syndication, there's no reason to push for a show to reach that 5-season, 100-episode milestone.
But these shorter seasons do come at a cost, specifically for the writers. See, television writers get paid per episode. So with a shorter episode count, they're getting paid less per season. On top of that, Many writers are locked into contracts that tie them to the show through production, a process that can actually take longer than traditional television because the streaming networks are not tied to traditional television schedules. So the writers are getting paid less per season, but they're also working fewer seasons. In fact, in 2020, the Writers Guild of America almost went on strike during negotiations for their 3-year contract renewal with the Alliance for Motion Picture and Television Producers. Luckily, both sides came to an agreement and a strike was averted. With all these changes going on behind the scenes, the last nail in the coffin of traditional television is the way we consume it.
Streaming is available anywhere and anytime. In 2013, when Netflix dropped its first original series, House of Cards, it seemed revolutionary that they would drop all 13 episodes for the first season on day one. In 2021, audiences are shocked that sites like Disney Plus don't follow the same model with their own original content. Streaming has changed audience expectations for when and how they watch programs, allowing for the rise of the binge watch and the fall in viewers' patience for new content. This style of release and consumption goes hand in hand with the upgrade in our technologies. Better data signals and more advanced smartphones and tablets mean that we can watch an entire season on our Uber ride to the office before work in the morning.
In addition to the demand for more content when we want it, how we want it, there's also been an uptick in niche programming. Traditional TV networks understood that in order to get the most eyeballs on their shows, they needed to please, or at least not offend, the broadest audience possible. Now, with an overflow of options, viewers can be more selective about the shows they watch, and programming can be more tailored to specific audiences. And when you consider the fact that these seasons are shorter and therefore less financially risky, the streaming networks can afford to make shows with less broad appeal just to see what's successful. And audiences are on board. And all of this power that the streaming networks are essentially giving over to viewers is in a symbiotic relationship with the rest of the changes we're seeing.
Streaming networks don't rely on Nielsen ratings to see what's doing well with viewers, and the numbers of viewers for a single program isn't tied directly to the profit that the network makes, since they're not dependent on advertisers or commercials. When you're not dependent on ad buys, but you are dependent on keeping your rabid consumer happy, you'll nix the lengthy and complicated production timeline of traditional TV and make content at a rate to please your viewers. This causes viewers to expect more content on demand without commercials, and the cycle continues.
And that is how internet streaming is killing traditional television. Now, TV's not going away anytime soon, even though many networks are creating digital content exclusively for their online platforms like NBC's Peacock or CBS Paramount Plus. These traditional networks still need programming to fill their evening lineups. But the way these shows are being produced is already changing, meaning that the model of traditional television is slowly but surely becoming irrelevant. Is that a good thing, or will you miss those 20-plus episode seasons that were standard for landmark shows like Lost or Friends or Grey's Anatomy? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and that bell for notifications so you're always ready to watch the next episode of Fact Bites. Thanks for watching!